A lot of people ask us what we carry. I can't speak for the other guys, but I can show you what I carry typically. This would be if I'm going into a higher risk environment. Obviously this isn't taking a trip to the Circle K necessarily. What we're looking at is what I keep on my belt, my front pockets, in my back pockets, and then someplace nearby, either in a shirt pocket or a bag or whatever I happen to be carrying. Again, this is pretty much what I would carry every day on a normal day. Starting off with the firearm, I keep Glock 35, pretty much stock. It's got, the only upgrade really is the Meprolite night sights. Underneath on the rail I keep a Surefire X200 LED weapons light. Very bright, strong, useful light. In addition to the 200, I have a DG switch added to it. It basically replaces the back switch and it brings out a remote switch under the guard here, so with my shooting grip I can operate the light without my trigger finger or the use of another hand. I can still use a second hand or my trigger finger to operate the light, but I don't need to. So I find that that package is the best overall for nighttime and daytime shooting. It's inside of a Bladetech outside the waistband kydex holster. Very strong, very sturdy. This one's been through lots of training classes, gotten lots of use and abuse, lived right through it all. It's not a deep concealment, but I can put a shirt on, over it that'll cover it up for the most part. To back that up, I've got the full mag on the other side on my belt in a Fobus single mag pouch, paddle style. That way I can take it off if I need to. I do have to loop or thread the belt out in order to remove the holster, but I can get this off fairly easily because it's a paddle. Right behind it I have a Surefire G2 LED in a Surefire holster, and again that needs to be thread through on the belt, but I always have this on. I don't always have the gun and extra magazine on. This allows it to be fairly modular too. If I'm going into a situation where I don't think I'm going to need 2 magazines, I can quickly take this off and leave it in a bag or something. So that's my belt. Going into the pockets, in the back pocket I usually have a Keltec P3AT, a 380, inside this DeSantis pocket holster, based by itself in that back pocket. A lot of guys like to have theirs on the opposite side from their main gun. I just don't like it over there. So I keep my wallet on that side, and along with my wallet I keep a spare magazine for the Keltec. So that's my back pockets. Up front, I started doing this pretty much this year after listening to a lot of guys that have been through knife fighting classes and defense classes. They recommend keeping a knife in each pocket. I've been carrying this Benchmade Auto-Axis, and I really like it. It's an Auto-Axis, so basically it's an automatic opening, which I really find useful. You don't always have the chance, even though it's fairly easy to open the Axis knife, you do need some amount of room to create the momentum of the blade there. You can flick it open, but again it's just so much easier sometimes in awkward positions and whatnot to be able to just have that blade flip into position. So I carry this one on my right side, and I've been carrying this one now for almost a year. Really like this knife, but because of the recommendations I started carrying the second knife, and there's a second benefit to that. I've noticed that since I like to keep this, I tend to favor this knife. It costs a little more. If I'm opening up a cardboard box or something, I'll use this less expensive, still quality, well-built Benchmade Griptillion, but I don't feel so bad about resharpening this blade over and over, where that one I try to leave it. I do carry 2 flashlights. The G2 I consider my tactical light, and I don't like to go to it as a task light if I can help it. So instead I carry this Fenix. Right now it's a PD30. I had the single cell version, a 1 CR123 battery version of this light. This light uses 2 CR123 batteries. It's a little bit bigger. It's not super huge, but it's still a little larger than the first one I had with the single cell. Was only about that long. It was a great light because it's great for a task light. That first click gives you the lowest lumens, second click is the medium, and then the third click is high. A fourth click gets you to this SOS mode, which obviously I don't use that very often, but I also don't click it 4 times very often. You can twist the bezel and go to a super bright mode and a strobe. I don't use the strobe very much, but having that super bright mode is pretty handy at night sometimes. Again, this is a sort of a sacrificial light. I don't mind if the batteries go out on this one because it's not my light that I go to in an emergency, like this tactical light, which is on my belt. A lot easier to get to, a lot easier to draw and replace in the holster. This one, my pocket is kind of large. I carry all these three things in the pocket, so these sink down. This light, I can get to it fairly easily, but it isn't as fast as the Surefire. In that same pocket, I've been carrying this Leatherman Squirt P4, which is the plier version of their small multi-tool. I like this one because the pliers are tight enough and refined enough that if I have a splinter, which we get quite a bit here in the southwest, I can remove the cactus splinter with these. It's really not super strong pliers, but for many years now I've been carrying this Leatherman Surge, which had much more substantial pliers, and honestly I didn't use the pliers very often. Very comfortable, very handy tool to have, and I used to carry this on my belt up here as a combo to offset the weight of the firearm. The reason I stopped wearing it is basically because the holster fell apart. After so many years of use, the snap just came loose, and I decided instead of either putting it in a new holster or trying to replace this one, I would try something else out. So about the beginning of the year when this failed, I stopped carrying this pretty heavy Surge and went to this almost nothing weight Squirt, and haven't found any real disadvantage yet. Occasionally, because of the easy access of the blades on the Surge, I would end up going to it for a knife, but now that I'm carrying a knife in both pockets, the Benchmade has sort of taken the role of the pocket knife from the Surge. So anyway, that combo's been pretty nice for me. It did reduce the overall weight quite a bit. So that's my front pockets. My back pockets and my belt. All that's left is a couple of gadgets I carry around. I've been testing out this Surefire pen, and it's been working pretty well for me. I just pulled it out of the bag that I've been carrying it in, and I noticed that the tip is all exploded. There's ink everywhere, so that's interesting. Obviously it came from this pen. It was out in the heat, and it was at some altitude, and only about 6,000 feet, so I wouldn't imagine that would have been too much for it, but something happened and it seems like the pen part broke on it, so that's something to keep in mind on the Surefire pen. But anyway, I keep a Surefire pen. It's a fairly decent pen. It's the first time in my life really that I've tried carrying a decent pen around, and I'm pretty satisfied. I like having a pen I can rely on. A little tedious to have to keep track of it. I'm not used to keeping track of pens. Plastic pens, if someone walks off with it, who cares? But if they walk off with a pen that costs more than $20, you care. I also carry my cell phone, which is no frills, a cheap phone, and which has a camera in it, which is handy. And then camera. Right now I'm using this Kodak C743. It's definitely not the smallest camera out there, but they've just been a real trooper for me. I've actually got about 4 of these, all the same model, and they work well. They're not perfect, but they're doing the job for me. And we like to keep a digital camera handy all the time, just because you never know when something interesting is going to happen, or when you can get that interesting picture or something. So that's pretty much what I carry daily. Sometimes I'll strip off the Glock and the magazine and strip down to a lighter weight version. If I'm really going lightweight, I'll leave the Presidio and the second flashlight. And of course the pen I don't usually take if I'm just going to the store or something. That's about as light as I'll get though. I always want to have a light around. I do think it's important to have some sort of firearm protection. And then better answer the phone here, so that's the video on what I carry every day.